I wanted to show you all how I connected my Rust microservice over to my RabbitMQ server that ultimately connects back to my React front end through my .NET backend application. So I'm going to show you in my .NET backend how I configured MassTransit to read RabbitMQ's messages without all the when they don't have all the request headers. So one of the problems I was running into with MassTransit is that it sends a bunch of request headers, and let me see if I can pull up the type. I think I have them. Do I have them saved? I think I do. Let me. Yeah. Okay. So if you use MassTransit to hook up to RabbitMQ in .NET, and you actually look at the message packet that goes to your queue, you're going to see a bunch of stuff in addition to your actual data. So I just defined interfaces for all those. And the actual part that we care about is the message here. So everything else basically just correlates to this message. So in my case, the message type is engine model, which is this. But yeah, so this is all the stuff like message header and then host. It just has a bunch of extra metadata associated with all the messages that flow through the queue. So what we have to do to accommodate not having this, when my Rust service is sending data to RabbitMQ and I have MassTransit looking for a message that would, it would think it would have this, is you have to use raw Json serializers. So the way when I got around the fact that Rust isn't sending all that extra metadata with the message, but it's only sending the serialized data that we actually care about, is if I go to notifications here inside my services that add MassTransit. So this basically just wires up everything you need to connect to whatever queue you happen to be working with, whether that's RabbitMQ, AWS, Azure, it doesn't matter. This one here is what is talking to my or what's being used by my Rust microservice. So this is the notifications queue, and these configurables here, clear message deserializers, and then use raw JSON serialization. Those are what you need to be able to tell MassTransit to look for messages without all the extra stuff, and basically to just use raw JSON to consume the messages off the queue. So then you just consume your configurable, or you configure your consumer like before and see the exact same. So if we go to my notifications consumer, you can see that it's pretty much, it's all identical, right? So I'm giving it, I'm letting it read this notifications type, and all that is a string of message. And if I go to my Rust microservice here, you can see that I'm sending this is my payload here, message, warning, engine overheated. And you can see that I'm sending it in a serialized object. So right here, I'm serializing this object of message with my message here, warning, engine overheated. So that's ultimately going to flow into this notifications queue here. And then that, when the message hits the queue, my backend is going to pick that up through this consumer. And because it's raw JSON, then I have it checking for that type here that I defined, because those have to be the same, right? So that serialized JSON object with message is what this has to correlate to as well. But it's not going to have all the extra metadata or message headers as the other one does, if you're using MassTransit. So that's how it's able to be consumed by this this notifications consumer class, and then it ultimately sends back down to my front end with that message. So if we go back to program, you can see that a different let me see if I'm looking for my logging notifications. You can see that I have the same type of situation set up for this queue that I'm going to be implementing for logging. Basically, I'm going to be creating a centralized logging area in my application to basically create distributed tracing throughout all my services in my application. So I need a centralized basically queue that's going to house all the log messages with like an associated ID, so I can pull those messages off the queue and then aggregate them into basically nodes representing each part of the system. So I need to make that, but I just had to create my startup configuration for that as well. But you can see that I gave it a very similar configuration as my notifications queue as well. So I'm going to show you an example of the logging queue. So if I click use signal R, and we're going to specify the number of requests per minute to send. So we're going to send 1,000, and let's start sending requests. You can see my Rust microservice. You're going to see where it's going to be sending the log message right there. So basically, when I construct the message to actually send to the notifications queue, how the log queue is going to work basically is going to take whatever log message you want to send, as well as the source that's sending it. I have to add in IDs to this to be able to correlate everything together, but until I do that, generally what's happening is that I'm making a log payload here that's also just a serialized object. And again, I have to make an ID, and the way that's going to work is I'm just going to pass an ID through my system all the way around. So I'm going to get an ID off of honestly, I could use the engine ID because that'll be unique, but I need some like kind of GUID or something that is going to be my ID that I'm going to send. So that's all I want to show for how I'm using raw JSON serialization to connect Rust to RabbitMQ, and then have .NET be able to read those messages that Rust is sending. So anyway, yeah, I'll see you in the next one.